socialist is Bernie Sanders. When they talk about how he's a radical. He's a radical. He wants fundamental change. Which, why wouldn't you want fundamental change? So Eisenhower, his socialism is actually more radical than Bernie Sanders. Eisenhower's taxes on the wealthy, which is $400,000 and up back in the 1950s, was at 92%, and he was a two-term president, and then he lowers it to 90% before the end of his term in 1960. So the marginal tax rate for the wealthy under President Eisenhower in America, the anti-communist Eisenhower, the racist with Operation Wetback, the Republican Dwight D. Eisenhower, had a 92% marginal tax rate on the wealthy. 92%. Bernie Sanders only wants 90%. He only wants 90%, so he is a smaller socialist than Eisenhower. And FDR taxed the $400,000 and above at 94%. So Eisenhower was a conservative. If you're a Republican, you weren't for the New Deal, you'd be laughed out of politics. Eisenhower is a Republican, so therefore he's a conservative. So therefore Bernie Sanders is a conservative. He's a conservative in these days and age, in this time, in our era. That would make him a moderating voice. Here's a Harry Truman quote on socialism. Harry Truman was not a good guy. Kind of a stupid moron. But give him hell, Harry, right? Give him hell. The Republican Party has opposed every single good program that the Democratic Party has tried to. The Republican Party. And who tried to stop us? It was the Republican Party. So give him hell, Harry, right? So, yeah, he's got a mixed legacy. He's kind of like a Fidel Castro kind of guy, right? He dropped the bomb on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, the worst war crimes in, all human history, killing way more people than any of your serial killers, right? Your Bundy, your Ted Bundy, or your Bundys, your Dahmers, or your, what's that Kentucky nurse that killed 100 people? So, whatever. Here we go. Harry Truman. Socialism is a scare word that they have hurled at every advance that people have made in the last 20 years. Socialism is what they call public power. Socialism is what they call Social Security. Socialism is what they call farm price support. Socialism is what they call bank deposit insurance. Socialism is what they call the growth of free and independent labor organizations. Socialism is their name for almost anything that helps all the people. Harry Truman, October 10, 1952. That's exactly right. So I'm not even for sure if America is capitalist. I know that we use socialism as, a cuss word. But I didn't grow up and we didn't all say, you're a capitalist, we're a capitalist, we're all doing capitalism, you represent capitalism, you're a capitalist. You fucking capitalist, you. That was not a conversation. And so socialism is the word. So you don't want to be a communist, right? You don't want to be socialist. Communist, that's definitely. But socialism is the thing that they throw at anything that helps all the people. Hey, I want to help all the people. What are you, some sort of socialist? How come helping all the people is a socialist concept? It's a socialist idea. I want to help everybody. No, I want to make sure everybody's doing good. Shouldn't you try to maximize the, well-being of as many people, the utilitarian sort of philosophy, whatever is best for the greatest number of people is what's best? So that would mean through utilitarianism says that socialism is the way. So let's talk a little bit about what capitalism is. Let's talk about what socialism is, okay? So I think first of all we got to define our terms. So capitalism sucks in many, many respects. Capitalism is bad for the environment. It's bad for the poor. It's bad for the homeless. It's bad for the health. And it's bad for the people when it comes to the prison industry. There's no profit incentive to cleaning up the earth. The industry dumps a bunch of waste and oil, and, they have to properly dispose of their waste. That costs money. It costs money to have to clean up the planet, to clean up the smog, to clean up the trash. That costs money. So no capitalist, no organization, no corporation is going to just clean up the environment for the environment's sake, nor are they going to help pull poor people out of poverty or build houses for the homeless. They're not going to, when it comes to the private prison industry, there's a profit incentive to throw you in jail, to put you behind bars, to incarcerate you, to lock you away. But there's no profit incentive to clean up the earth, no profit incentive to care about the poor, to care about everybody's health. So capitalism ultimately fails when it comes to helping the greatest number of people. You have a large poor class, working class, some middle class still, but homeless and even working poor. So, yeah, when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to environment, when it comes to economics. So the whole idea of what capitalism is, I mean, if you get specific, you can probably get to Milton Friedman. He'd probably be your poster boy for your right-wing capitalist. Now, he says we need some government in order to have, make sure corporations have a place to resolve their disputes. Now, capitalism, the idea of capitalism is that we're going to have a bunch of rich, greedy fucking bastards who's running shit, paying politicians off, and, just being rich, greedy bastards, doing themselves, being rich and greedy and trying to produce goods and services to make as much fucking money as they possibly can. It's kind of an insane idea if you think about it, for the entire economy. I mean, who decided this? Who come up with this? Now, it's also sort of laissez-faire, in the sense that if we all just do what we want, it'll all just work out somehow, right? Oh, you want to do that? You want to do that? Just search for your dreams. The market will figure it out, right? Supply and demand and just the tug and pull. So capitalism, it fails in many respects. It fails the environment. It fails economics. And it also fails people's health and, it fails the prison industry. So it fails all over the place. So capitalism sucks in many respects. It sucks because it's dog eat dog. Everybody is pitted against everybody. And you can, just an inch above someone else, you have to climb and scratch and claw just in order to get a piece of the pie, just a tiny little corner. So dog eat dog. Everybody has to take care of their own economic well-being, so you have a bunch of very individualistic, selfish people. Some sink in America, some swim, some live, some die. In America, if you don't have health care and you're about to die of diabetes or, cancer, colon cancer, if you don't have health care, fuck you. You die. You don't have a home, you're homeless, fuck you. Cops just shot your child dead. Well, that's your problem, not mine. Fuck you, I got mine. That's capitalism. So capitalism is very, very selfish. And when it comes to wages and people moving up and down, it's easy to break unions, right? Everybody needs a job. Everybody wants to make another dime. Hey, I'll pay you a dime if you fuck them over. And so because it's dog eat dog, some sink, some swim, some live, some die. To live in America, you must have a job. So it's work or die. Work or die in the U.S. Isn't that slavery? But you have to work or die or win the lottery so you can establish yourself a business. But there's no seeding programs for you to start a business. If you're a working class person, you can't start a business. You're not allowed to. There's no seed income. There's no money. You have to, pimp yourself out for some labor job, and then maybe you'll be able to save some money. But with the cost of rent and everything going up, you'll probably just end up just paying just to survive. So you're not building up your wealth. You're not building up your property or equity. You're losing it all in rent. And you're renting your services, so you're working for somebody else, another person, another corporation's exploiting you in your labor. So capitalism is careerism. We have a protest industry in America. If there's something that's bad, if something bad happens in America, then I would like to think it's an organic thing. Everybody gets pissed off, and then they go and protest. But not that it's a job. It's not. It's just something you temporarily do until you fix the damn thing. You don't make a career out of it, but that's capitalism. Capitalism is careerism. So it's smart for the protest industry. It's smart for Michael Moore. It's smart for Bernie Sanders to make some money, speaking truth to power, for pushing for progressive policies. because ultimately socialism is selflessness. It's saying, hey, we all can, we all could survive and do fine in this thing. So capitalist, there's careerism, so you have to turn a job and somehow make it into a career, find some kind of job, not just a temporary thing, but something, okay, well, I'm the person that flips the burgers at McDonald's. That's my job. Now I get to make a career out of it just to make sure I get job security. I'm the burger flipper around these parts. So capitalists have to scratch and claw just to carve themselves a little niche, right? Just a little place, a career, a house of sticks, a piece of worthless dirt, just to get a little bit of. Capitalists are also opportunists. Capitalists are exploiters. So can you make money off of bottling water? Well, shit, let's start. How come we haven't been bottling water this whole time? Man, we could have been making so much money. What, water is a human right? No, you don't have a human right for water in America. You got to pay for your water. You think you got a human right to, what's next? Food? You think you have a right to water? What, you think you have a right to food next? Shit. Capitalists are deceiving. They are deceitful. They use lying, cheating, stealing in order to get their way. A lot of times imperialism and capitalism go hand in hand. Countries don't just pick capitalism on their own. Chile, Venezuela, Bolivia, these countries have to be forced by imperialism to go capitalist. So because capitalism is so ruthless, because capitalism pits everybody against everybody, the wealthy versus the middle versus the poor versus the homeless, because capitalism is all about the individual and how it's the individual's responsibility to figure out their own economic path, whether or not you succeed or not in America, is on you. It's on your back. It's totally 100% you. So if you fail, well then that means, some sink, some die. And so that's a criticism, but it's also kind of a blessing of capitalism because it makes people very, very hungry. You want to get some food? You can't think of anything else until you make that buck so you can get yourself a sandwich. And then if you can get above, just basic sustenance, then you have to compete with big business and, try to come up with a product or service that nobody else has and then, do the permits and then hopefully it succeeds. So the engine of capitalism, because you're always thinking and innovating and trying to say, well, how can I make it do this? I got to make the money so the cash. At least the individuals who work, as long as it's copyrighted by a corporation, the inventor is going to be okay. The individual is championed. So the engine of capitalism is stronger than the engine of socialism. That which pushes people to, capitalism is basically, do whatever the hell you want to do. Complete economic liberty, right? I think monopolies should be crushed. And even Milton Friedman said we need court systems, so there's some government, right? Government's the big boogeyman. Not really. And for capitalists, you need some government so that way you can resolve your disputes. Also need police so the damn rabble don't destroy your bank and your, facilities and whatnot. So as an American, I have to figure out a way to make money. I have to make money. I got to sell things. I got to find a skill, gig culture. I can, pimp myself out some way, somehow. Find a job. Work on a career. Start a business. Sounds like a dream, but I have to do something. I have to make money. The government will not take care of me. Food stamps last for 6 months. So the government won't take care of me, has never taken care of me, will never take care of me. And I don't want to be taken care of. I would like a safety net if I stumble and fall. But the engine of capitalism is stronger than the engine of socialism. We all have food and water and all the rest. Well, basically our own motivation will just be on what we want and not what we need. And I think that actually would make it a better capitalist system. Instead of everybody having to pimp themselves out just for a sandwich, maybe you can pimp yourself out, for a house or a progressive community or a bike trail or something. So, yeah, we could think bigger, right? If we are both capitalist and socialist. Now, that's capitalism. So capitalism has many problems, right? A lot of deceitful people, everybody trying to one-up on you, trying to get the first product out there to sell, to undercut everybody else. Sam Walton would walk into other people's stores, and then just undercut them by 10 cents. Right? No, I'm cheaper than them all because they have 10 cents. And then some of them have coupons. If you show us a cheaper coupon, we'll recognize it. So a lot of times, and then that's supposed to be good for the consumer. Now that's if we have a fair playing field. That's if we all started out, in the middle class and we all had the same chances as everybody else. If we had equal opportunity. Socialism gets criticized for being too much about equality. We all have to do everything the same, and we're all, bread lines and gas lines, and nobody's an individual, and we're all just worker bees for the state. But socialism, there's a lot of very good things about socialism, okay? So we need to define our terms. So I'm trying to just, essentially explain what I think about socialism, what I think about capitalism, because to me, we only have two major economic systems in the whole sphere of, all of human thinking. You can keep things the same, you can change things, you can be conservative, you can be liberal, you can be capitalist, you can be socialist, you can also be, have a balance of all those things. So socialism is found in the instinct of every serious thinking worker. Every serious thinking worker, it's in the instinct. Socialism is in your blood. If you're working class, then socialism is already in your blood. And so Bernie Sanders being a socialist is very much a part of his revolutionary appeal. How much of a socialist is Bernie Sanders? Right? He's an Eisenhower Republican. Eisenhower was actually more socialist than Bernie Sanders. Eisenhower taxed the rich at 92%. Bernie only wants 90%. So he might be a Marxist. Marx is not a bad guy. Marx is just a philosopher, historian. He's the one that comes up with communism and comes up with a different economic system. But essentially, it's just one that counters capitalism. So by some respects, socialism is just the critique of capitalism. Were people even capitalistic to begin with? It's like when gay folks, before there was even that, language of gay and straight, everybody was just, one certain way. So straight people, with the, invention or with the discovery of gay people, came along the discovery of straight people, and vice versa for, socialist and capitalist. If one's a capitalist nation, one's a socialist nation, what do they mean specifically? It's just a different philosophy of an economic system, and they're the two leading economic, theories. There's, the modern money theory, I think, is another one. So MMT, I guess, could get up there. And then somebody said a resource-based society. And I think you could think in different terms, but ultimately, in terms of capitalism, socialism, in terms of taking care of everybody, being a bleeding heart liberal, and saying we all got this, we'll all be fine, singing Kumbaya, out by a bonfire. So the socialist has a heart, they give a damn about others, they have love and compassion, and they care about the community. They care about everybody. Whereas the capitalist says, by me being a selfish piece of shit, and you being a selfish piece of shit, eventually we'll all do better that way. And so, do you see how the second economic system could go awry? You see how it could go a little detour? All right, you be a selfish piece of shit, and you be a selfish. Let's all just be selfish pieces of shit. All right, and we'll call it capitalism. So Bernie Sanders being a socialist means he's selfless. He cares about everybody. He gives a damn. He loves. It means he's for the working class. He's a democratic socialist, which means whatever the fuck Bernie wants it to mean, because it's his own term. But the way I think it essentially means is just that you elect a socialist instead of a socialist communist just, coming in like a Bolshevik or Che Guevara and just taking the government over by a violent revolution. Some might say coup d'etat. So democratic socialist is a socialist who gets elected versus someone who just takes power. Now, if you want to think about, okay, so he's an Eisenhower Republican. He's less of a socialist than Dwight D. Eisenhower. But if you want to get down to the nitty-gritty, is he for the, Soviet Union kind of socialism? Is he for, Cuba's socialism? Is he for China's communism? And what kind of socialist is Bernie Sanders? Well, Bernie has said it over and over and over again. Him being a democratic socialist means that we're going to be like Denmark in Scandinavia. He mentions Denmark and Scandinavia many times. Finland, Sweden, Norway. These are the 4 examples that he has cited numerous times. Denmark, Finland, Sweden, Norway. There's also France, Germany, Italy, UK, Iceland, Canada, Switzerland, Bolivia. All these nations, all of Europe and Canada has some sort of mixture of socialist and capitalist qualities, of individualistic, free market, private enterprise versus social spending, welfare spending, government-owned businesses, and or unions or worker-owned corporations. That's the literal definition, is the working class controls the means of production. So if the working class, if the unions didn't unionize against the boss, but instead started their own corporation and just the workers controlled that corporation, that would be literally the definition of socialism. So America could do a lot worse than Europe or Canada. Him being a democratic socialist is not radical, it's conservative, an Eisenhower Republican, so it's already left or right of center compared to Europe and Canada. And the fact that we haven't had a socialist heartbeat, we haven't gave a damn about, the community. We haven't gave a shit. So socialist. There's 3 definitions of socialism. There's government spending and government programs, which is the welfare state, right? Services, products, food stamps, Obama phones, housing loans, public schools, libraries. Whatever, if the government spends money on the thing and it's for the people, then some people, Mitch McConnell, a lot of people say that's socialism. There's when government owns factories, stores, gas stations. John Iadora, he says that whenever the government owns an industry or a part of the industry, that's socialistic because the assumption is government represents the working class. I question that because if we don't have a democracy, then government could represent corporations and then they could use, the government as a bludgeon, as a hammer to bludgeon the people instead of the other way around, which would be the difference between democracy and a dictatorship. And then there's a little definition. When the working class own and control the means of production. The means of production are the factories, the things that produce stuff. The means of production, the means that produce stuff. So the factories, the 3D printers, the whatever produces stuff, right? Factories, buildings, the capital. So the machines, right? The factories and the machines. That's the means of production. When the working class controls that which makes a bunch of shit, then why wouldn't we make a bunch of cars for ourselves? Why wouldn't we make a bunch of houses? Why wouldn't we make sure we have an abundance of food and water and clothing? Why, just have scarcity for all to where we're just kind of scraping on the bottom for a little piece of bone, just is scraping and nibbling and just like little rats just to try to get whatever, food falls off the table, to get our little scraps. Democracy, you would think, is a natural road to socialism. Socialism is, the idealism of a boy. Let's all just, get along. Let's make sure we don't have poor people. While that is utopia, while that is ideal, you have to have ideals to give you the direction of which way you want society to go. Do you want just okay, here we are, right? We got a messy-ass house, and a lot of people don't even have a home and food, but who gives a fuck, right? Let's just stick right. No, let's be better. Let's keep doing better. Margaret Thatcher said the problem with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. Socialism is the philosophy of failure, the creed of ignorance, and the gospel of envy, says Winston Churchill. The inherent vice of capitalism is the unequal sharing of blessings. The inherent virtue of socialism is the equal sharing of miseries. Socialism is capitalism's critique. and vice versa. Capitalism is socialism's critique. We comes from God, I from the devil. Socialism is selflessness. It carries selflessness as an axiom. We comes from God, I from the devil. So socialism corresponds most closely to an existence that's both rational and moral. It stands for cooperation, not confrontation, for fellowship, not fear and war. Socialism is also very Christian. Acts 2:44-45. All the believers worked together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give anyone who had need. So they just sold all their stuff, joined a commune, and anybody who needed it, they gave them what they needed. My God, that's communist. That's not socialism. That's just straight up communism. Long-haired hippie, hung out with the destitute. Jesus Christ is very socialist. He gave bread and fish to the multitude of the people. They didn't have bread, didn't have fish, and all of a sudden, out of his magic bag, all of a sudden, bread and fish and wine. Hell, let's make this, a feast and a party. He hung out with the tax collectors, prostitutes, the poor people, and the lepers, the people that were sick. So the downtrodden, the marginalized, and the alienated. Jesus Christ, the Bible character, is for truth, freedom, love, and peace. He spoke up against the Roman Empire. Chuck out the money changers in sacred places. So that's throwing out capitalists. Get the fuck out of here, you capitalists. Get the fuck out of here, you imperialist Romans. We get to speak, and we get to love, and we get to take care of one another. In some respects, socialism is just capitalism for the lower classes. So I was trying to think of some of the extremes. You can have authoritarian capitalism and you can have authoritarian socialism. So neither one of them automatically assumes authoritarian nature. You can have an autocracy, a tyranny, a total totalitarian nightmare where you got King God Hitler takes everybody's produce and money and spends it as he pleases. Whatever people produce, just take it and take all their stuff and take it for yourself and for your own personal. You could also have like a Robin Hood, Quasimodo, Christ mass celebration, pie in the sky utopia. You give some homeless beggar all the power of King God, a dictatorship of the proletariat, and then he takes it all, but he spends it for the utilitarian purpose of the betterment of all. So he's a benevolent dictator, a nice homeless beggar, King God, benevolent dictator. But both of those are authoritarian. Stalin and Mao are left-wing dictators. Hitler and Mussolini are right-wing dictators. But I think you can actually have socialism and libertarianism. They are not the opposite. You can care about the poor and still maintain your personal liberties. They are not polar opposites. They are not contradictions. We can house the homeless, we can feed the poor, and we can still have a right to speak and still have privacy and the right to religion and assembly. Just because we're helping the poor out, that doesn't automatically mean we lose our freedoms. Now, some economic freedom might be taken away, but ultimately, socialism is capitalism for the working class. So the more free stuff you give me, the more college, the more health care, the more child care, the more vacation days, the more sick pay, the more universal basic income that you give me, that increases my freedom. It makes me more free. Instead of having to work like a dog, maybe go to college, work like a dog, maybe get some health care. Now I know that my education is taken care of. Now I know that I'll be healthy. Now I can just pursue my dreams instead of having to worry about all this extra bullshit. So socialism increases my personal freedom. It doesn't limit my civil liberties. It expands my civil liberties. You think you're free and you're poor? You're not free if you're poor in America. If you're, if you have money, money is freedom in America. So all of us chipping in to help the poor, that doesn't mean we give up our freedom of speech. Why would we do that? Hey, Tommy needs some food. Well, all right, we can give him food, but you better not, say any goddamn thing else afterwards. No, we're still going to have all of our Bill of Rights, all of our personal freedoms. We're just going to give a shit about one another. We're going to have a heartbeat. Socialism and libertarianism aren't contradictions. I'm a, conservative liberal. I'm a capitalist socialist. I'm a libertarian communist or whatever. So a mixture of right and left. So they're not fundamental opposites. We're not going to lose our individual liberties just because we give housing to the homeless. So public college, health care, child care, all these things increases my freedom. Changing the post office into having banking services, not changing, but adding banking services to the post office, that is good for me. That means instead of having to kiss some